Last time, we saw Sherlock Holmes and others try to protect the precious gem Penultimate Night from being stolen by Arsene Lupin. They have barricaded themselves inside the room, believing that they had outwitted the gentleman thief. However, we find out that it was actually them who were fooled. A strong torrent of water rushes inside from the only vent in the room, quickly flooding the chambers. All the gentlemen inside the room of residual sins try their best to cling to something before they get swept away by the rushing water. Phileas Fogg attempts to close the silver box, but the water is rapidly filling the room. Eventually, Holmes hears the sound of flowing water getting weaker, meaning that it's about to stop. At the same time, they hear loud bangs from outside the door. Fatima Doubledarts has come to their rescue by destroying the locks. Due to pressure, the water destroys the door and flows freely into the canal beneath them. When the water has cleared, everyone can see that the chair where the box lays is now empty. Holmes checks the time. It's 11:30 p.m. It looks like Lupin is successful after all. They all return to the parlour where Fatima's companion, Reinhold Stingheart, is waiting. Everyone is wet and cold and dejected. But for Holmes, all is not yet lost. He approaches Inspector Ganimard and asks for handcuffs. Without warning, Holmes puts him down on the floor and puts the cuffs on him. Everyone is stunned by this action. Then they become shocked as Holmes reveals that this man is actually Lupin. Holmes shares with them his deduction about what happened tonight. First, Lupin showed up at his house to plant seeds of distraction. The showing of unlocking trinkets and pulling off masks had led Holmes to believe that these would be the same tactics he'd use to steal the gem. Lupin surprised them by engineering the water from the moat to flow into the room. This did not only distract them, but it also disguised the heavy rope that would be attached to the box. No human could fit into the vent, so Lupin made sure that his accomplice, Eric, would be the one to pull it out. Not only that, he made sure that his disguise would be perfect as Inspector Ganimard. That's why it didn't fall off when Holmes pulled the beard earlier. Lupin finally drops his mask. He's impressed by Holmes' deduction, but the question is, did he win tonight? Holmes reveals that Lupin has only managed to get the box. The gem inside is in a different place. In fact, it's inside Watson's cigarette case, put in one of his jacket's pockets. Well, that just made it easier for Lupin. He manages to get it and then escapes the room using a smokescreen. As he runs along the rooftop, Eric in his soldier uniform makes sure that everyone is busy looking for Lupin before running himself. The two rendezvous at the greenhouse nearby. As Lupin admires the silver box that Eric holds, its door flies open. From inside, Ayarindo shouts for Shinichi Tsugaru. Just like a bullet, he jumps down and retrieves the box, surprising the two thieves, while Shizuku Hase walks calmly toward her master. As it turns out, Aya has been hiding inside since that afternoon, relying on her instincts that doing so will lead them to Lupin and Eric. She has taken inspiration from the legend of pot heists in Japan that happened after the capture and execution of Ishikawa Goemon. Aya has figured that Lupin would never suspect a human being to be inside the box, much less the head of an immortal. Eric makes a wise move by leaving Lupin there. Shizuku decides to follow him. After he leaves, Reinhold arrives to finally retrieve the gem himself. Lupin, Tsugaru and Reinhold are in a standoff when the ground suddenly shakes. From the shouts of men outside, they know that an explosion occurred, collapsing the bridge and trapping everyone inside the property. Lupin denies setting the bomb, which is not a lie because another group joins the party that night. The professor, the same man who took Aya's body and turned Tsugaru into a monster, is now leading a group of assorted people. Upon entering the mansion, the group wastes no time cutting the guards into pieces or setting them on fire. The professor gives orders to his people to find Lupin and retrieve the diamond. Jack, the red-haired man, will take the east side, while he and Victor, the giant behind him, will search the west side. Alistair, an eccentric man, and Carmilla, a seductive lady, will serve as decoys for the police and guards. He also adds that they can take care of his so-called old friends if they happen to meet them. Tsugaru and the rest don't know about this yet, as they're focused more on the gem. Lupin throws it outside the greenhouse and jumps out after it. Naturally, the other two men follow. This leaves Aya alone until the arrival of Holmes and Watson. The two inform her of what is happening. Aya has a shrewd idea of who the new arrivals are, so she convinces Holmes to take her. Her information may come in handy in case they encounter one of these people. Meanwhile, Eric is hiding inside a shed and is currently being hunted down by Fatima. Despite her small stature, Fatima is deadly with 2 crossbows in her hands. Soon she shoots Eric in the back, but not fatally. He has no choice but to lure her closer and take her down. Inside the mansion, the lights have gone out thanks to the intruders, leaving only the fires from the burning bodies and furniture. Carmilla walks alone leisurely until she finds a maid hiding in a nook, shaking with fear. Carmilla is pleased to at least get a snack while working, so she crouches down and eases the maid's fear before biting her neck and draining her of blood. After finishing her snack, Carmilla continues her walk until she meets Inspector Lestrade. It's clear that the officer has no suitable weapon against the seductive vampire, and he would have been sliced into pieces if Shizuku hadn't arrived in time. Shizuku doesn't pay any notice to her as she's after Eric, but the vampire realizes the maid is one of the professor's old friends, so she threatens to kill all of them. This finally gets Shizuku's attention and instructs Lestrade to get away. On the other side of the mansion, Alistair sets another guard on fire. This is his greeting to Lupin, Watson and Aya, who have just arrived there. Lupin recognizes Alistair Crowley, a former researcher of magic and divination, who has influenced several cults into carrying out cruel rituals. But Alistair says he's not into it anymore as he's serving another group. Then he looks at Aya, and is pleased to know that he gets the chance to kill one of Professor's old acquaintances. He's done talking with Holmes, so he flicks one of his poisonous needles at them. Holmes and Watson dodge, with the detective taking note of Alistair's nimble fingers. The criminal keeps on flicking needles at the 2 men and even flicks fire to light the room. Holmes and Watson's open fire at him, but he's too good at dodging bullets. Once the 2 men are in hiding, Alistair approaches Aya. He's so curious to see a talking head. He doesn't mind spilling to her his group's intentions. The professor wants the Penultimate Night because it can lead him to the mythical population of werewolves. As for Aya's body, he may have seen it at their base, but he's not sure. Holmes takes this opportunity to distract Alistair and charges at him head-on. With a cane, he hits the criminal's fingers, tossing the poisonous needle into Alistair's cheek. Instantly he gets paralyzed, but he has an antidote. Just as Holmes prepares to give the final hit, one wall suddenly blows up, revealing the professor, and Holmes can only gape at what he's seeing. It turns out the professor is none other than Moriarty, Holmes's sworn enemy. They last saw each other years before, when Holmes was accosting Moriarty at Reichenbach Falls. Moriarty used to lead a crime organization and was reported dead. But now Aya understands that this man and the one who took her body are the same because of the cane with the letter M carved on it. When Holmes asks why he's returned after 8 years of silence, Moriarty says that he has new and better ideas. And it all started with what he calls his apprentice. Behind him, Victor appears and brings his boss a chair, signalling a lengthy narrative that will shed a general light on Moriarty and his intentions. The apprentice he's referring to is none other than Jack the Ripper, who is still wanted for the Whitechapel murders 11 years ago. He begged the professor if he could make him stronger, and Moriarty was more than interested in taking him on. They travelled to Japan, where both demons and the immortal reside. Moriarty aimed to combine the genes of these 2 creatures with a human to create a being with high intelligence, great physical strength, and regenerative abilities. With the help of Jack, they managed to capture some demons just as the Great Demon Purge was about to end. Moriarty injected demon cells into several humans with robust bodies, including Jack, but the mutation was too strong to withstand. He also tried to recreate an immortal using Aya's body, but he found out that the fundamentals were different than that of creating a human-demon hybrid. At this point, Aya reveals that she was indeed experimented on by a sick man 950 years ago, and that's how she became immortal. Moriarty continues his tale, saying that even if he wasn't able to create an immortal, he found out that the cells stabilized the demon cells inside Jack's body and made him immune to fatal mutations. To strengthen Jack, they traveled to the Carpathian region, captured a vampire and fused its cells into him. Holmes, Watson and Aya now realize why Moriarty is after the Penultimate Night. If he manages to capture a werewolf, then he'll be able to create a formidable chimera. And with the variety of monsters in his group, Moriarty will be invincible. To understand how strong Jack will be if he gets infused with werewolf cells, we need to know how strong he is currently. Tsugaru, Lupin and Reinhold are still fighting over the gem. Tsugaru catches the gem with his mouth, but he spits it out after getting kicked by Reinhold. To shut him up, Lupin drops a grand piano on top of him. But this doesn't deter Reinhold. He lifts the piano in fury just as Fatima falls badly beside him. On the mezzanine area, Eric lands beside Lupin. Reinhold orders Fatima to retrieve the gem, but before she, or anyone for that matter, can move, another character jumps in. Jack's presence fills the place with a horrifying illusion, as if everyone is bathed in blood. He pockets the gem, then jumps at Fatima and slices her. Then he slaps Reinhold unconscious. Seeing all this, Lupin decides to retreat. There's no point getting caught between two monsters, and with that, the two flee away. Jack and Tsugaru introduce themselves to each other. Then Tsugaru attacks first. He cuts a sandbag in front of Jack and swipes at one of his pockets. Jack dodges. Tsugaru removes his coat in preparation for a serious fight. The two regard each other, eyeing the markings on their body. There's a certain familiarity between them, a knowledge that they're both products of inhumane experiments. One has embraced it willingly, while the other reluctantly and belatedly so. The Red Oni and Blue Oni fight each other brutally, but because of Jack's vampire cells, he's more speedy and stronger than Tsugaru, despite the latter's cunning fight skills. After throwing Tsugaru into a wall, Jack sees no reason to end him. He lights a flare, signaling to others that the mission is done. The flare comes just in time as Shizuka falls to the mercy of Carmilla. The maid is on par with the vampire, releasing one strong punch after another, but Carmilla strikes her in the end, biting Shizuka's hand. Her poison acts like an aphrodisiac, making Shizuka feel so erotic she can't think straight. Carmilla almost sexually pleasures her until the maid grabs a cross and stabs her with it. Carmilla is about to attack in retaliation when the flare lights up the night sky, prompting her to stop. Moriarty also sees this and prepares to leave. Before leaving, he informs Holmes, Watson and Aya of his name, The Banquet, and that they've won tonight. After the events, everyone who's still alive gathers at the parlour, dejected because of their failures. At Moriarty's base, everyone is anticipating, except for Carmilla, who can't get over Shizuku. The professor asks Jack to show them the Penultimate Night, but to their shocked disappointment, Jack's pocket is ripped. That's because Tsugaru has managed to swipe at it earlier, snagging the gem and hiding it in his coat. Aya is pleased, especially since she has cracked the cipher engraved on it. When put against light, the europium in the gem casts a red glow. The words read Fangzan Wald, or Fang's Forest, the presumed location of the village of wolves. It seems like the next adventure for the cage users is already set. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.